This one is going to be probably the most anticipated football game of the evening, or at least the second one. And that is going to be the Green Bay Packers versus the Minnesota Vikings. You know this is going to be competitive. Now, the Minnesota Vikings, once again, they're at home once again because they have a good record. They've managed to win 8 or 9 out of 12 games this past season. Congratulations, Minnesota Vikings. And they have a chance to do something in history that doesn't always happen to that football team. That's knock off the best quarterback and the best team in the NFL. Now, the last time this team played, they were in Minnesota. And Minnesota almost beat them. And then they had the game again in Green Bay, and they almost knocked off the Packers in Green Bay. This is like the second or third time they have had to play each other this season. This is like a season rivalry. Now, if Aaron Rodgers want to go back to the playoffs, he knows what he got to do. He got to throw the football and just play for 4 quarters. I have a feeling that because this is the Packers and this is a very crucial game, this is one of those make or break football games for Aaron Rodgers. He loses this, I don't care what happens next Sunday or the week after that. He loses this football game, it will prove to everybody that he's not a better quarterback than Tom Brady. You know, everybody want to talk about Tom Brady's too old. You know, Tom Brady's arm ain't what it used to be. Well, Aaron Rodgers' arm ain't what it used to be. They played against the Dallas Cowboys last week, and the Cowboys not the Cowboys, but the Chicago Bears almost beat the Packers. Did you not see how difficult it was to get around that offense of the Cowboys? Not the Cowboys, the Chicago Bears. Well, the Minnesota Vikings won't make the same mistake as the Chicago Bears. See, the Chicago Bears were so impatient that they made turnovers. They fumbled the football. They had interceptions. They did not understand how to blitz the offense of the Packers. They didn't know what to expect from Aaron Rodgers. And by the time they figured out what he was going to do, it was too little too late. They started letting him off the hook. This time, the Minnesota Vikings won't make the same mistake. This time, Minnesota is not going to let Green Bay score. I guarantee you when the game starts, the score is going to be 6-0. First, you're going to see somebody run to the end zone, 3-0, nothing. Then you're going to see Minnesota get the ball again, go back in the end zone, score going to be 6-0. They're going to try to do everything they can to make sure Green Bay don't win Sunday. I mean, if Green Bay can beat Minnesota in Minnesota, they would have done the impossible, because the word is supposedly from this Minnesota Viking fan who left me a comment section like 6.5 months ago. He basically told me from his conclusion and from the statistics that Green Bay ain't never beat Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota. That's what he says according to him, which he might be correct on. But again, Green Bay not just going to sit there and lay down and lose a football game because you're a Minnesota Viking fan. This is going to be a dogfight. This is going to be one of them games that you don't expect the game to go into overtime. It'll probably go into overtime when you don't expect it. Like all season long, you've been trying to predict a game to go into overtime. You probably only had 2 or 3 games this past season that went into overtime. This is one of them times where you go, it ain't going to go into overtime. And then before you say it, before you know it, game goes into overtime. I think if Packers win, that's a big if, the score will probably be 34-31. I don't think Vikings are just going to let the Packers just come in there and just win. You know, you're going to have to go through overtime to get it. If Vikings lose, they're going to make sure the game goes into overtime. Until then, peace.